Day 150. 2 Chronicles 10-12. Then Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone there to make him king. When Jeroboam son of Nebat heard about this, he returned from Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon. So they sent for Jeroboam, and he and all Israel came to Rehoboam and said, "Your father put a heavy yoke on us. But now you should lighten the burden of your father's service and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." Rehoboam answered, "Come back to me in 3 days." So the people departed. Then King Rehoboam consulted with the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. "How do you advise me to respond to these people?" he asked. They replied, "If you will be kind to these people and please them by speaking kind words to them, they will be your servants forever." But Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders. Instead, he consulted the young men who had grown up with him and served him. He asked them, "What message do you advise that we send back to these people who have spoken to me, saying, 'Lighten the yoke your father put on us'?" The young men who had grown up with him replied, "This is how you should answer these people who said to you, 'Your father made our yoke heavy, but you should make it lighter.' This is what you should tell them, 'My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Whereas my father burdened you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. Whereas my father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions.'" After 3 days, Jeroboam and all the people returned to Rehoboam, since the king had said, "Come back to me on the 3rd day." And the king answered them harshly. King Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders and spoke to them as the young men had advised, saying, "Whereas my father made your yoke heavy, I will add to your yoke. Whereas my father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions." So the king did not listen to the people, and indeed this turn of events was from God, in order that the Lord might fulfill the word that he had spoken through Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam son of Nebat. When all Israel saw that the king had refused to listen to them, they answered the king, "What portion do we have in David, and what inheritance in the son of Jesse? To your tents, O Israel! Look now to your own house, O David!" So all the Israelites went home, but Rehoboam still reigned over the Israelites living in the cities of Judah. Then King Rehoboam sent out Hadoram, who was in charge of the forced labor, but the Israelites stoned him to death. And King Rehoboam mounted his chariot in haste and escaped to Jerusalem. So to this day Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David. When Rehoboam arrived in Jerusalem, he mobilized the house of Judah and Benjamin, 180,000 chosen warriors, to fight against Israel and restore the kingdom to Rehoboam. But the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah the man of God, "Tell Rehoboam son of Solomon king of Judah and all the Israelites in Judah and Benjamin that this is what the Lord says, you are not to go up and fight against your brothers. Each of you must return home, for this word is from me." So they listened to the words of the Lord and turned back from going against Jeroboam. Rehoboam continued to live in Jerusalem, and he built up cities for defense in Judah. He built up Bethlehem, Etam, Tekoa, Beth-zur, Soco, Adullam, Gath, Mareshah, Ziph, Adoraim, Lachish, Azekah, Zorah, Aijalon, and Hebron, the fortified cities in Judah and Benjamin. He strengthened their fortresses and put officers in them, with supplies of food, oil, and wine. He also put shields and spears in all the cities and strengthened them greatly. So Judah and Benjamin belonged to him. Moreover, the priests and Levites from all their districts throughout Israel stood with Rehoboam. For the Levites left their pasture lands and their possessions and went to Judah and Jerusalem, because Jeroboam and his sons had rejected them as priests of the Lord. And Jeroboam appointed his own priests for the high places and for the goat demons and calf idols he had made. Those from every tribe of Israel who had set their hearts to seek the Lord their God followed the Levites to Jerusalem to sacrifice to the Lord, the God of their fathers. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and supported Rehoboam son of Solomon for 3 years, because they walked for 3 years in the way of David and Solomon. And Rehoboam married Mahalath, who was the daughter of David's son Jeremoth and of Abihail, the daughter of Jesse's son Eliab. She bore sons to him, Jeush, Shemaiah, and Zaham. After her, he married Maacah daughter of Absalom, and she bore to him Abijah, Attai, Ziza, and Shelomith. Rehoboam loved Maacah daughter of Absalom more than all his wives and concubines. In all, he had 18 wives and 60 concubines, and he was the father of 28 sons and 60 daughters. Rehoboam appointed Abijah son of Maacah as chief prince among his brothers, intending to make him king. Rehoboam also acted wisely by dispersing some of his sons throughout the districts of Judah and Benjamin, and to all the fortified cities. He gave them abundant provisions and sought many wives for them. After Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and royal power, he and all Israel with him forsook the law of the Lord. In the 5th year of Rehoboam's reign, because they had been unfaithful to the Lord, Shishak king of Egypt came up and attacked Jerusalem with 1,200 chariots, 60,000 horsemen, and countless troops who came with him out of Egypt, Libyans, Sukkites, and Cushites. He captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. Then Shemaiah the prophet came to Rehoboam and the leaders of Judah who had gathered at Jerusalem because of Shishak, and he said to them, "This is what the Lord says, you have forsaken me, therefore I have forsaken you into the hand of Shishak." So the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves and said, "The Lord is righteous." When the Lord saw that they had humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, "They have humbled themselves, I will not destroy them, but will soon grant them deliverance. My wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem through Shishak. Nevertheless, they will become his servants, so that they may learn the difference between serving me and serving the kings of other lands." So King Shishak of Egypt attacked Jerusalem and seized the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the royal palace. He took everything, including the gold shields that Solomon had made. Then King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place and committed them to the care of the captains of the guard on duty at the entrance to the royal palace. And whenever the king entered the house of the Lord, the guards would go with him, bearing the shields, and later they would return them to the guard room. Because Rehoboam humbled himself, the anger of the Lord turned away from him, and he did not destroy him completely. Indeed, conditions were good in Judah. Thus King Rehoboam established himself in Jerusalem. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen from all the tribes of Israel in which to put his name. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. And Rehoboam did evil because he did not set his heart to seek the Lord. Now the acts of Rehoboam, from first to last, are they not written in the records of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning the genealogies? There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout their days. And Rehoboam rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And his son Abijah reigned in his place. John 11 verses 30-57. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were in the house consoling Mary saw how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary came to Jesus and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you put him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they answered. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them asked, "Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind also have kept Lazarus from dying?" Jesus, once again deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," Jesus said. "Lord, by now he stinks," said Martha, the sister of the dead man. "It has already been 4 days." Jesus replied, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus lifted his eyes upward and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I say this for the benefit of the people standing here, so they may believe that you sent me." After Jesus had said this, he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had been dead came out with his hands and feet bound in strips of linen, and his face wrapped in a cloth. "Unwrap him and let him go," Jesus told them. Therefore many of the Jews who had come to Mary, and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and Pharisees convened the Sanhedrin and said, "What are we to do? This man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation." But one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." Caiaphas did not say this on his own. Instead, as high priest that year, he was prophesying that Jesus would die for the nation, and not only for the nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to gather them together into one. So from that day on they plotted to kill him. As a result, Jesus no longer went about publicly among the Jews, but he withdrew to a town called Ephraim in an area near the wilderness. And he stayed there with the disciples. Now the Jewish Passover was near, and many people went up from the country to Jerusalem to purify themselves before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus and asking one another as they stood in the temple courts, "What do you think? Will he come to the feast at all?" But the chief priests and Pharisees had given orders that anyone who knew where he was must report it, so that they could arrest him.